No way, Jose.
The following footage proves beyond any doubt that the tanks intentionally set the house on fire. It proves that the Branch Davidians were murdered. You can see that this tank has a gas jet on the front that shoots fire. You can also see the fire quite plainly. The tank goes into the house twice, and each time as it backs out, the fire at the gas jet is plainly visible.
We must all do more to recognize and look for the early warning signals that deeply troubled young people send.
Good morning. This is the No Way Jose podcast. You are watching the Morning Dump. Let me know if I'm sounding good today, looking good. Oh, I got a goofy hair hanging out back there. What is up, party people? It is December 19th. We are here in another beautiful, crazy day. I have plenty of stuff to go through with y'all. We might get a guest, maybe. We'll see. I gave an invite out to my buddy Raven. I kind of wanted to see if we could figure out a way to stream to both at the same time. I think I have an idea. But pleasure to be here with you all. Please, someone let me know. Make sure you're hearing me good, all good like, before we keep moving with today. All right. Let me see on my end, make sure. All right, cool. Well, I think I'm good. I don't know why you guys are being so quiet today. I don't know if you were expecting me here. But yeah, we're good to go. What the fuck is going on? Something seems screwy with the viewer count. Usually have more over on Rumble. But anyways, there we go. Got someone saying I can hear you. I was just waiting for I can hear you. I feel like you guys are usually quicker on the uptake. Although I usually give a shout out about like starting earlier. I was running a little bit late today, so it was kind of like a 15-minute, hey, we're doing it. You guys seem to be getting more responsive to knowing when we're going. But yeah, as I was saying, we might get Raven in here in a bit, so we'll see. I guess while we wait to see if maybe our guest does or does not show up. I mean, he's kind of up in there. Oh, there we go. Shit, there's Raven. What's up, dude?
What's up? I am here. I don't know how I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm also on Rumble at the same time.
Yeah. What I was thinking, I've always wanted to try this.
This
and
is
it just
crazy.
kind of
I'm
weirdly
surprised
worked.
that it's still like I thought the camera was going to get prioritized.
Yeah.
Right now, these psychopaths on Rumble are watching me talk to.
Oh, you use Rumble. You use Rumble to host, don't you? So that's
what's going on. Yes.
Okay, because I was like, I've always figured like you could just hop on someone else's StreamYard link and then just take down your thing and then just screen share the other link.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
I have an idea.
Because I feel like that would work, and then you could take Rumble rants from your channel and everything.
Well, what if I did this? What if I did a screen share on my Rumble studio and I opened up your YouTube?
Yeah.
And then I made my camera on Rumble Studio disappear. Let's try that out.
Yeah, that was kind of I guess that's the same idea, just with a different host.
I couldn't figure. I was like, I'm on the fly. My brain.
Because that's a way to. I always felt that'd be cool. Is a cool way to like hop into streams midstream and not have to like abort anyone's stream or whatever. You just literally hop in and then you can share your stream on your stream.
You know what the problem is?
Or this stream on your stream. What's up?
There's a feedback loop. So I'm wondering, how do I present this to my audience without
the feedback? What do you mean? There's a delay? Is that what you're saying?
No. So,
I mean, you just not show your camera. So because you can show this camera on my StreamYard, right, and not on the.
Yeah, but the problem is I hear it. So if I share.
Oh, just mute the. I mean, you definitely don't want to mute it for the people.
Right.
But,
That's the part. Yeah, that's the part that I'm confused about.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how you could mute that while also keeping the other streams where you could listen to it.
Yeah, like if I make it big, people can see it, but there's a delay and there's latency. Yeah. Wait.
I didn't even think about
create
that.
a new scene with just the YouTube as the browser source. Right, but then I'm gonna end up hearing.
Well,
it.
maybe it's just not tenable. I wanted to try it out. I mean, whatever.
If we were on StreamYard, it would work. Are you doing this tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll do this. I mean, I'm doing it tomorrow, and then probably most of all next week, except for Wednesday, because that's Christmas.
So then let's do that. Maybe tomorrow we could link up. And then what I could do is we could simultaneously stream to both mine and yours at the same time.
Well, that was a fun little experiment at the expense of our listeners, but
that's all right. Let's do that. We tried, dude. So we'll link up tomorrow, right? Morning dump and timeline cleanse crossover tomorrow morning.
Yeah. We'll do one big brain, one pee pee poo poo. We'll just go back and forth. So
we can stay in pee pee poo poo.
Ping pong shit and big brain. So
whatever you want to do. All right, tomorrow morning, guys. You hear that? Tomorrow morning, we'll be going live together. Morning dump / timeline cleanse tomorrow morning. Probably around the same time, right? Like 10.
Yeah, about around 10-ish. I got like a hard out around noon because I got a wrestling tournament tomorrow with a kiddo. So, yeah.
That works out.
All
right, brother. Let me get back to this then. I'll catch you
later.
later.
All right, thanks for joining me. We'll see you tomorrow, I guess. So, all right, bye-bye. On to your regular program stuff. Dr. A says he does look very YMCA today. I just wanted to try that out. It was, whatever. Expensive our audience. We got a little bit of crossover. If you guys want to see that that couple minutes, and you're from Bazaar's or from Raven's audience, then that might behoove you. All right. I guess let's first things first. I guess this is kind of while we're waiting for more people to roll in. I do want to remind you guys that today's episode is brought to you by Nadeau Shave Co. If you're tired of that razor irritation, what the fuck? Where is the graphic? What is going on? Sorry, guys. Oh, there we go. I put it. I swear I moved it or something. Whether you're tired of that the razor burn irritation and ingrown hairs, then this is the way to go. Big Shave's been siping the American people for decades with their expensive scam. Go back to traditional shave. You know the expensive nonsense. You can shave just like your grandpa used to, whether you're shaving your whole face or edging up your beard. These single blades give you a barber-grade shave for a fraction of the price. The standard issue includes one traditional safety razor and a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. $75 to shave for a whole year. Let's be real. It's probably going to last you a lot longer than that. I've barely put a dent in it. It just comes down to how often you shave. But if you are someone who shaves on the regular, you may want to consider the Quarter Shave Club. That puts you at about 25 cents per replacement blade. He's also got shave soaps, 3-in-1 body, hair, and face soap. I highly recommend it. The stuff smells good. It's great for shaving with. It's a COVID mandate refusing company. This company was born out of refusing the mandate. Use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. All right, let's get back into the show, and let's check with you guys. Everyone's saying good morning, sup-tards, good morning. I got everyone popping in. All right, let's start off with a few stories. Let's start off with let's start here. No, not right there. Where the fuck is it? Here we go. This is actually shared from one of our frequent listeners. I feel like he seems to show up whenever I drop premieres in the middle of the day. That seems to be his time slot where he's available. But old Corbeau, I forget, he has a long normal playlist or normal username. I can't remember the whole name, but it's Corbeau. And at one point, I believe we were talking in one of the chats. He shows up for Already Dead a lot too. We were talking in the chat to him about, I believe, this story, and so he shared a link to me to look into it a little bit further. This is Kentucky. This was December 13th, 2024. A bizarre case. Police uncover alleged cannibalistic conversations with Kentucky inmate. Morgan County, Kentucky. Detectives have revealed the grim relationship between a woman facing human trafficking charges and a Morgan County inmate. In November, Alina Sparenberg, 34, was indicted by a Morgan County grand jury. Court records show that Sparenberg was charged with conspiracy to human trafficking, solicitation to murder, first-degree solicitation to sexual abuse of a victim under the age of 12, and distribution of obscene matter. According to the West Liberty Police Department, Sparenberg and a Morgan County inmate from Harlan County were frequently communicating. Police told Fox 56 that the two shared numerous images, videos, electronic messages, letters, and calls about sexual abuse, rape, kidnapping, unaliving, mutilation, and torture, satanic rituals, cannibalism, human trafficking, and the collection of human remains for naughty purposes were also reportedly discussed. These conversations were referenced toward both adults and minors, officials told Fox 56. West Liberty police said they searched her Illinois home and confiscated electronic charges. These devices further confirmed that what the police learned about their conversations with the help of the Kentucky Department of Corrections. Sparrenburg was extradited from Illinois to Kentucky on a Morgan County warrant and was lodged in the Rowan County Detention Center on a $250,000 bond. Wild stuff. Yeah, so this does look like this is all we have on this, but it looks like, if we're to believe the claims here, is that there was some sort of human trafficking aspect to it. They don't have specifics on that, but they did show. So we know, in her charges somehow, something to do with human trafficking, solicitation to unalive people, stuff with someone, a kid, and distribution of obscene matter, whatever that means. So that I would assume that would mean something along the lines of like a CP distribution or something. So it sounds like a human trafficking type. It kind of does sound like some sort of trafficking operation of some sort, possibly with minors. And then you add into that the satanic stuff, the cannibalism. Does seem to fit in the sort of stuff that me and Austin talk about on the show quite frequently. I'll have to maybe bring this up to him whenever I have Austin on the show again. All right, yeah, wild stuff. Good morning, Naga from Shovelhead. Good morning, guys. Good morning. Pleasure to have you guys with me. All right, what else we got today? Let's get into. Whoop, boop, boop. Here we go. This is from Radix. Well, the original's not from Radix. The only reason it came by Timeline is because of Radix, though. So she says, this is insane. The result of an FBI having an informant spend 3 years inserting himself into this guy's life. This is the era of Pat Con 2.0. The FBI continues their efforts to try to manufacture fake terror cases and target militias. Now, what is she referring to? This is a tweet that she's quoted from Ford Fisher, who he's a guy who did really good reporting on the Kekwa militia thing. For those who want to look into that, I did an episode on that not too long ago. You probably could just scroll through some of the old videos and find it fairly easily. With Radix Verum, it's like called the Kekwa Fed or something like that. He probably did the best reporting with Radix doing like the second best, which she would admit that too. He was kind of like Johnny on the spot, the first one there. And it's also just was like his kind of, I believe, his main focus. Whereas like we know Radix is more about the Michigan stuff, but she was following this as well. So I got her on to talk about that. But either way, this is Ford Fisher. This is another catch of his. He says thread on Tuesday, Joint Terrorism Task Force officers with the Norfolk FBI and assistance from the ATF arrested Virginia man Brad Spafford for possessing an unregistered short barrel rifle. The arrest was the result of a multi-year confidential human source. Let's. Now it says a confidential human source reported in January 2023 that Spafford lost fingers on Independence Day 2021 while working with a homemade explosive device. Okay, so this guy already had lost fingers. He says Spafford and friends were making ammunition for something that Spafford would not be able to do alone. The informant reportedly saw Spafford's hands before and after the event, which is confusingly worded. If he saw them in person, then the informant has been around the defendant for more than 3 years. If he saw them pre-disfigurement in some other way, like a photo, then he has still been around him for at least nearly 2 years. Okay, so the importance of the fingers thing is I guess they were able to discern from the court documents the length of time that this informant has been working with, essentially working this guy. All right. In May 2023, the informant and Spafford went to a gun range together, each with their own weapons. The informant brought his own short barrel rifle, but it was registered. The now defendant allegedly brought what the informant believes was also an SBR. In September 2023, Spafford allegedly sent pictures of his Go box to the informant, which included rifles in it. One of these appeared to be a short barrel rifle, which for those who aren't aware, when it comes to guns, rifle, there's a regulation on how long your barrel can be for your rifle. I forget the reasoning exactly why. I mean, it's not like your gun magically becomes super duper powerful. I believe it does give it, I think, more power when it's shorter. I mean, I don't fucking know. I would assume it probably makes it easier to move around. Some things I don't fucking know. I'm not that kind of a gun guy. It's always seemed to be a silly rule, and it's kind of the joke that this is what feds are always trying to get people for. Oh, just shave this rifle down a little bit. Just shave down this shotgun a little bit. That sort of thing. So it's just an ongoing joke, and to me, it doesn't really make much sense why it even matters. I mean, I guess it makes more sense to me with a shotgun. Because I believe that would kind of give it more of a spread. But I don't know. I'm sure there's some gun guy out there cringing about me talking up my ass right now. But either way, it's a silly rule that they seem to try to always want to hem people up on. In November, he allegedly told the informant that the rifle is a 10-inch barrel. SBR is defined as under 16. In October 2024, the informant went to now defendant Spafford's house in Smithfield, Virginia. Spafford allegedly told the federal informant his short barrel rifle is not registered because he does not believe in registration. The ATF examined photos, warrant issued. According to local reporting on WAVY, the FBI's presence at the Smithfield property included the sound of loud booms from Tuesday night into Wednesday evening. Brad Spafford is being held without bond for now and has a detention hearing scheduled for Monday. So point being is it looks like they fucking followed this guy around for like 2 to 3 years, all just to inevitably hem him up on an SBR, on his fucking rifle barrel being too fucking short for years and years, just for that. I mean, to be fair, to their credit, maybe there was another reasoning. But yeah, sounds like another Ruby Ridge setup. Exactly. Yeah, that's what most people know it from is Ruby Ridge. Is that that's what they got Randy Weaver on? I don't know if it was a rifle or if it was a shotgun in his case, but they shaved down too far. I thought the barrel length was so you couldn't hide it under your coat. I don't know. I've never really thought too deeply about the reasoning. I mean, I guess sure. I mean, they're so fucking unwieldy. I mean, I don't know. I guess yeah, sure you can put it in a coat. I mean, whatever. I don't know. It just always seemed dumb to me. All right, here is something I wanted to go over with you guys. This is from Boltzmann Booty. This is a post on. This is a new short post on the bizarre claim by IDF's Nova investigator that a large number of corpses were brought or dumped at the Nova Festival after the initial killing of October 7th. This is at his Substack. Highly recommended. He does good stuff. Great follow too. Let's see how short it really is. Oh, he said short. He fucking lied. This is not short. This is long. Okay. Actually, no, it's not that long. It says corpse math. Who brought 140 extra bodies to the Nova Festival? It says a representative for the IDF's chief of staff claims that 220 to 230 people were unalived at the festival, and the rest of the 364 corpses were brought there. The 364 unalives attributed to Hamas's attack on the Nova Festival on October 7th, 2023, taken in isolation from the rest of the events that day, constitute the single deadliest mass casualty event in Israel's short history. This status has invited close scrutiny and attention. Nonetheless, the true source of many of the Nova deaths remains an open question. Early reporting suggested that an IDF combat helicopter arrived at the party during the fighting and unalived some of the festival goers, and documents and IDF testimonials demonstrate that the Hannibal procedure was invoked in at least some parts of Israel to permit the unaliving of hostages taken by Hamas, including the Raim army base, which was a very short distance from the festival. I touch on these and other points regarding the Nova Festival in my Substack post from April, suggesting Israel intentionally provoked and exploited the October 7th attack to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Future dispatches from Nuts and Boltzmann et al. Will strengthen and extend that argument, with special attention paid to the Nova Festival. But in this post, as a prelude, I want to focus on an outright bizarre Israeli news item I haven't seen discussed in English anywhere else. Earlier this month, a report in Hebrew from the Israeli Public Broadcasting Corporation added an entirely new dimension to questions surrounding the origins of the Nova Festival deaths. The article provides excerpts from a transcription of a discussion between Israeli police officers and Edu Mizrahi, a representative of the IDF's chief of staff who was assigned to investigate the IDF's conduct regarding the Nova Festival. A Google translation of the entire article is reproduced below, but here is the extremely weird exchange I want to highlight for you. Sorry. I left my noise on my thing. Turn that off so you guys don't have to keep hearing that. Sorry, super unprofessional. All right, there we go. We're good. All right. Okay, so he translated the entire article. I'm not sure if we need to read all of it. But all right, the chief of staff representative, the first bullet fired in the Nova area, not in the compound, was at 9:10. At that time, they overwhelmed the area of the Axis, massacred everyone who was still on the Axis because there are quite a few vehicles there. The only force they were unable to overwhelm was Oron Solomon, his son, and a few other policemen with whom they were sitting behind the tank. There is also the incident of the tank, which was still moving around there. This is also a bizarre incident. Basically, from 9:10, the whole thing opened up. They were able to enter the compound, and they massacred in the compound. 220 to 230 bodies came out of it. That is the order of magnitude that we evacuated from the compound itself, associated with the party a little less. In other words, a lot of bodies during this 24-hour period were dumped in this area. I have no idea why. Okay. Weird already. Police officers, what you're telling us is that some of the bodies found there didn't belong to the party. Police attorney, as if they were brought here. Representative of the chief of staff, they were brought. Now, this is back to Booty again. I first came across a surreal nugget using an AI dubbing service to translate a couple of Hebrew TV clips that Khan tweeted about the story. Thank you to researcher Nicholas Rodello for assisting with that. Because voice transcription for Hebrew is still a bit rough around the edges, because Israelis sometimes use idioms I'm not familiar with, and because it just sounds so batshit, I was worried I might be misunderstanding what the IDF chief of staff representative was trying to convey in that message. But the above translation seems unambiguous. Only 220 to 230 bodies were initially recovered on the Nova Festival grounds, with others brought or dumped there by unknown actors in the subsequent 24 hours. Having absorbed this, a litany of new questions presents itself. Who did that? Why did they do that? When did they do that? How did they do that? Does this mean that the rest of the 364 people who supposedly were unalived at the Nova Festival were actually brought there later? Does this mean something like 140 of the corpses that ended up on the Nova Festival grounds are of completely unexplained origin? None of these questions have been answered. Somehow this extremely unusual exchange has not merited a single mention in the English language press. To repeat, the IDF officer assigned to investigate the Nova Festival has publicly implied that he doesn't know the origin of more than a third of the corpses of the party. You almost certainly haven't heard about that until this moment. Why? The Nova Festival has served as a cornerstone of Israel's year-plus-long genocidal media frenzy. Potent imagery and stories from the party have saturated social media and provided fodder for high-profile, heavily advertised films and exhibitions that have etched a series of lurid, broadly incorrect narratives into the public consciousness and historical record. For every picture you've seen of a child in Gaza, pulverized beyond recognition, a typical American has seen 5 pictures of piles of dead Israeli ravers. So while it's utterly unclear why 140 mystery corpses materialize on the Nova Festival grounds, it's crystal clear why major media outlets don't seem to be mustering their considerable resources and deploying their estimable gumshoes to chase this one down. The first rule of atrocity propaganda: never look a gift horse in the mouth. Moving on from that, what else is there to say? 140 mystery corpses at the Nova Festival. The Hebrew News report also contains an important confirmation of something that was already strongly suspected. During the meetings held between heads of... Oh, crap, I didn't even have this shared the whole time. You were looking at his Twitter post. My bad. Not that it really matters too much. All right, sorry. Moving on from that, what else to say? 140 mystery corpses at the Nova Festival. The Hebrew News report also contains an important confirmation of something that was already strongly suspected. During the meetings held between heads of Israel's security state on the night of October 6th, in response to unusual Hamas activity in Gaza, they suggested an impending attack. The Nova Festival was explicitly discussed. They decided it was probably fine, no need to let the party organizers know. Yeah, here's the story. I'm not reading all that. I think that might be, yeah, that's the extent of the story. This is a story from earlier that he's talking about that he translated. So that's the story. We don't have to read the entire story there. Let's pop back into the chat, see what you guys have to say. Morning, guys. Good morning, friends. Good morning, everyone joining us. Definitely make sure you're hitting that like button, sharing this around, all that. All right, let's get back into it. All right, what else we got? This is something shared from one of you guys. I believe this is Rage Child. Says this is, so I haven't really looked into this at all. Let's go through this together. This could be the biggest story on Earth, but it's getting minimal coverage. Russian MIL allege that the U.S. are developing bioweapons in Ukraine to include C-19. The CIA/Ukraine just assassinated the guy leading the investigation. This is also what Hunter's pardon is about. So, all right, let's hear this out. I don't know how legit any of this is. I know nothing about any of this.
United States, in particular the investment fund Rosemont Seneca, which is headed by Hunter Biden.
Rosemont Seneca Partners is the firm tied to Hunter Biden, the U.S. president's son. And the Russian Defense Ministry is listing financial entities that are involved in these biolabs in Ukraine. Now, they also listed George Soros's Open Society Institute and Open Society Foundations, which are also involved with them, and as well as the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and the Ministry of Health of Ukraine, and the U.S. Department of Threat Reduction. All of them seem to be tied in with these biolabs. And it appears that that Rosemont Seneca Partners, the reason that they would be involved is because they have a relationship with Metabiota and Black & Veatch, which are main suppliers of Pentagon biolab materials. Now, Moscow is also coming forward and saying that it appears these biolabs are connected with institutions and research organizations that are related to nuclear missiles. This is what was said.
The scale of the program is impressive. In addition to the military, the U.S. Agencies for International Development, the George Soros Foundation, and the Center for Disease Prevention Control are directly involved in its implementation. Scientific supervision is carried out by leading research organizations, including the Los Alamos National Laboratory, which developed nuclear weapons as part of the Manhattan Project. All these activities are carried out under the full control of the Pentagon.
Now, the over 30 biolabs are accused by Russia of being involved in weapons development and trying to develop biological weapons. Now, the USA denies this and insists they are simply research facilities. And we did hear acknowledgement of these facilities' existence from U.S. Undersecretary Victoria Nuland.
Ukraine has biological research facilities. We are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
The fact that that she expressed this concern about their possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know if this is an old one. I believe they said this guy. They said the guy leading the investigation was assassinated. I remember there was some general recently killed. Maybe it was this guy Igor Kirillov? Let me look it up. I believe that actually. Yeah, I believe he just got killed. Let me see. Yeah, a murder of chemical weapons chief Igor Kirillov. Yeah. That was the recent one. I remember I'd heard chatter about them somehow managing to kill some general, so that could play into it. I mean, this is this guy that we're looking at right here. He's fucking. I mean, share this tab right here. You know, Russia detained suspect over murder of chemical weapons chief Igor Kirillov 23 hours ago. So yeah, that guy is dead. So I don't know what to make of that. Weird. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they were running bioweapons there. So it is kind of crazy that I know there was a big deal that this guy just died. So all right, well, that's something, huh? That sure is something. All right, let me check back in the chat, see what you guys are. Everyone's saying good morning. Good morning, friends. Good morning, Jose. Good morning. Good morning. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. Share this around. Let everyone know. All right, let's see. We have... This is one from my buddy Ken. He wrote this about one of the Michigan kidnapping people. It looks like they tried to go after one of their moms. So let's read about this. Real quick. FBI informant tried implicating innocent mother in Whitmer kidnap plot. New record shows. There we go. It says these evil turds tried to go after my mom as well back in 2020. I was innocent. 4 years ago, the Justice Department announced charges against a group of men that were accused of plotting to kidnap Michigan's governor. Though the DOJ's case largely collapsed after the public learned that the FBI entrapped the defendants, new details are still seeping out about how the government targeted innocent men and apparently women too. On Monday, journalist Christina Urso, who's working on a documentary on the kidnap conspiracy case, that is Radix Ferrum for those who aren't aware, she's the best, released a newly unearthed document from December 2020 that shines more light on the FBI's chilling activities. According to the document, an FBI informant tried implicating one of the target's mothers in the conspiracy to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. The FBI informant, one of at least a dozen informants involved in the case, told their handler that after the arrest of Michigan resident Eric Malter, his mother posted a social media message praising his willingness to defend America. The mother, Sue Malter, also encouraged others to follow in her son's footsteps, the FBI informant alleged. And here's just a tweet where Eric Malter is saying how they went after his mom, and it's basically kind of like, fuck you. He says, these evil turds tried to go after my mom when I was as well back in 2020. I was innocent. She was even cleaner than I was, at least as she wasn't involved in militia, security work, or paramilitary run and gun competitions. Fuck you, Whitmer, Dana Nessel, FBI, the Justice Department. The post Sue Molitor allegedly wrote after said she was proud of Eric and Grandpa will be very proud of you and your brother for defending America in the Constitution in which his father went to war to defend and he himself signed the dotted line. In total, this information caused the FBI informant to assess that Sue Molitor may have been more of a driving force behind Eric Molitor's involvement in the plot against the Michigan state governor than previously noted, the FBI said in its December 1st, 2020 memo, which also raised the possibility of Eric's brother being involved. However, the FBI informant's tip about Sue was misinformation. She was never charged, and her son Eric, who voted for Whitmer in 2018, was acquitted late last year. Two other men mentioned in the newly unearthed FBI memo, brothers William and Michael Null, were also acquitted. Eric expressed anger upon learning the FBI targeted his mother and brother. These evil turds tried to go after my mom back in 2020. I was innocent. The quote I just read a minute ago. Sue had a similar reaction. Look what the FBI tried to do to me. I just found this out a day ago. It makes me so sick. If they try to do this to me, they are capable of doing it to anyone, she said. Need to get in touch with someone who can help the victims of FBI/Whitmer. Meanwhile, Adam Fox and Barry Croft, who were convicted after their second federal trial in late 2022, are awaiting decisions on their appeals. Their decisions could be rendered any day now. All right, nothing new from you guys. All right, let me see. Just when you think you hate the feds enough, they go and do something like this. Yeah, this is kind of fucked up. All right, guys. This will be the only update we have on Bluebeam today. This is your daily Bluebeam update. Guys, it's China now. Chinese spy drones. Here is from the New York Post. Spy drones from China are likely cause of unexplained aircraft wreaking havoc over U.S. House Foreign Affairs chair says in bombshell claim. Guys, so pack it up. It's China. Guys, it's China again, just like the balloon. China. So, all right, guys, on to the next. That's really all I have. I don't really have anything. I mean, I don't think it's China. I don't think it's China. I think it's the government. I don't really. It doesn't. Nothing else really makes sense to me. There's no way that China has been doing all this shit. I also do think it's probably blown out of proportion in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of sensationalism. I think this really is. I mean, calling it Bluebeam's a little bit facetious, but I do think it's like, to some extent, if the fervor had gotten high enough, and maybe it still could, if the derangement reached a high enough pitch, I do think that it would continue to roll out more and more craziness to where we could have easily have gotten to a blue beam type situation, because I do think part of an op like this is to kind of like, you see how far you can get, and then you slip in a little bit more ridiculousness, and if you can just get the fervor going enough, it's just a matter of seeing what you can make stick. And if they're not able to get to where, we're full on like, oh, there's intergalactic warfare going on in our skies, if they could have got us to that point, that they might still be able to, I think they would. So it's just a matter of like, what is going to stick. I mean, because to some degree, they need to have some level of confidence that the American public isn't just going to go, what? Get the fuck out of here. Like, that's not the case. All right, now we're looking at this. Apparently, Tim Pool's reportedly selling his entire Timcast operation to Daily Wire effective January 1st. Sources confirmed to Media Right News. Now, I haven't seen anything from Tim saying otherwise. He's made a few jokes here and there. He has neither confirmed nor denied, which makes me think that there's probably some level of truth to it. I don't know why he wouldn't just deny it at this point. Now, it might not be exactly what we think. A lot of people are thinking that it's just like a buyout, or that, or that now he's still going to be managing, he's still going to be running a show, but for Ben Shapiro instead. I don't know. I don't know what the truth of this is. This is all just kind of rumor mill stuff. I will say I'm not surprised. It doesn't surprise me. I guess a little bit disappointed, because I do think, not that I'm like, like close to Tim or anything in any way. I've only been on the show twice. I mean, Tim probably, if you said my name, he probably wouldn't even know who the fuck you're talking about. So, but I mean, I guess a little disappointed in that. Not that I ever really thought that this was like a bastion of independent media, or like, but they definitely have done a lot for people in our circles and like kind of boosted them up. But it's like, I don't know. I think it's pretty, I mean, I don't know how anyone could really think that Daily Wire is independent media. Like, they're the new establishment media. That's what they are. They're the new one. So, I mean, if he doesn't see that, then I just think he doesn't see the future. And I think, like, then whatever, maybe this was great for him, and now he's selling while he's high, because I think this is about as high as it's going to be. I do think that he has this sort of outlook, like, that I think it'll probably just continue from here. So, I mean, I do think, like, I don't know, he would become the establishment in the future if he continued down this road. So, I don't know, I'm talking to my ass a little bit, so I don't know. It could stay as it is. I don't think it's a good thing if it goes to Daily Wire. I think Timcast is a better entity as it was before. I think how it would present itself under a Daily Wire control, I don't know. I have a feeling we'll be getting less of the sort of guests that of the dissident type, but that will then also just kind of accelerate the Daily Wire, and even, I guess, now Timcast along with it, because it'd be tying its boat to it down to obscurity over time, which I know they're doing really well. I've heard Daily Wire is killing it these days, but I don't know. If you have your ear to the ground, I just feel like that's not the future. I don't see Daily Wire killing it 10 years from now. So, but I mean, so far as now, so far as like an inflection point, so far as market value, if I was Tim Pool, it does make sense. He'd be like, now is the time to sell what he's doing. And he has voiced concern about how he doesn't really like managing all that. And you know what? That's fair. I get it. But I don't know. Selling it to Daily Wire, I don't know. I mean, whatever. It's your own thing. Do what you want. Just kind of a little disappointing. Didn't expect much, but a little disappointed. All right, let's check in with you guys. It's fucking Chiran, yeah. Anyone could find this out. The paper trail would be obvious. I call BS. I don't know what you're referring to, Dr. Corey 420. I don't know if you're talking about him selling to Daily Wire, which, I mean, I don't know. I know Tim does tend to like to troll a lot, so, I mean, maybe there is no truth to this at all, and he's just enjoying the troll. I could totally see him do that. I don't know. I mean, I also just kind of, I guess I don't really care all that much. I don't know. I mean, it sounds bad. I mean, I like people still over there. I think Shane's still over there doing stuff. I like Shane. Obviously, I like a lot of the people back there. You know, Brett. Brett's cool. I met him before. They let Hannah go, which she was cool. I thought she was a sweetheart, but I mean, not like we were close friends. They let Cassandra go. That was the biggest one, probably. That was the biggest sign for me of like, I don't know what the new direction is here. I don't know who's booking these days, but I do think a lot of the goodwill that people give, Timcast, because for their guests and the such, that was directly, it could be attributed to Cassandra. So her being gone. Now, I don't know. I mean, maybe not. Maybe that's not the case, but I do think it's I don't think it spells a good future. But I could be wrong. Completely talking my ass. Maybe he doesn't sell to him. Maybe he goes full dissident media right angle, fucking starts booking those sort of people. But that's not the feeling I get. But I don't know. The sale of assets would be obvious. Well, I don't know what you mean by that, but the sale of assets. You're saying that like he hasn't bought them yet though. Supposedly the idea is January 1st, and then also on top of that, like, I mean, I don't know what the terms of the deal would be if there even is deal. So I don't know. I don't know how if there really would be stuff you could see, if that makes sense, that would really point to that being the case. All right, let's this got skipped over last week because we had a bunch of shit going on. With between Bluebeam and Mangione, and then the J6 informant. We had a busy week last week and the week before too. But this somehow slipped in, and I think it kind of got forgotten with all the craziness. The COVID task force final report, and this is from Dissident Media, saying that it confirms basically every conspiracy theory that people's lives were destroyed for even mentioning just a few years ago. So here we go. We got. Let me read this. I'm going to zoom in. All right, the origins of this is the page from it. It says the origins of the coronavirus pandemic, including but not limited to the federal government's funding of gain-of-function research. COVID-19 origin. COVID-19 most likely emerged from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. The 5 strongest arguments in favor of the lab leak theory include, by the way, I would have just, my channel would be gone if this happened, a couple years ago? I don't remember when they stopped, probably, I guess 4 years ago, maybe. Yeah, but probably about 4 years ago, I would have lost my channel. Like, if I had said this when my channel first started, that channel would be gone. This is 1, the virus possessed a biological characteristic that is not found in nature. 2, data shows that all COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans. This runs contrary to previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events. 3, Wuhan is home to China's foremost SARS research lab, which has a history of conducting gain-of-function research at inadequate biosafety levels. 4, Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers were sick with a COVID-like virus in the fall of 2019, months before COVID-19 was discovered in the wet market. 5, by nearly all measures of science, if there was evidence of a natural origin, it would have already surfaced. Then also the proximal origin publication, the proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2 publication, which was used repeatedly by public health officials in the media to discredit the lab leak theory, was prompted by Dr. Fauci to push the preferred narrative that COVID-19 originated in nature. Gain-of-function research. A lab-related incident involving gain-of-function research is most likely the origin of COVID-19. Current government mechanisms for overseeing this dangerous gain-of-function research are incomplete, severely convoluted, and lack global applicability. EcoHealth Alliance Incorporated. EcoHealth, under the leadership of Dr. Peter Daszak, used U.S. taxpayer dollars to facilitate dangerous gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China. After the subcommittee released evidence of EcoHealth violating the terms of its National Institutes of Health grant, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services commenced official debarment proceedings and suspended all funding to EcoHealth. New evidence also shows that the DOJ has opened an investigation of EcoHealth's pandemic-era activities. All right, this is just one page, so hell yeah, that's pretty cool, I guess. What's not cool is probably absolutely nothing will come of this. So, which is, I guess, this is a window into our lives as conspiracy theorists. It's like, well, look, cool, they admitted we're right, and nothing is happening. Good morning, Schizos. Good morning, Abrogate Ds. Luckily, I can YouTube while running an excavator. Hell yeah, dude. Leak my ass. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, whether it's a leak or not, yeah, I think it probably was not a leak. I always found it really weird, which, I mean, obviously just complete time of convenience. this crazy COVID-19 shenanigans hit right when we were due for a bust. It was almost like, it's weird. You always see this boom bust cycle, and anytime a bust comes along, there's always some great big world event that somehow takes some of the brunt of the nastiness. Is that what we can blame it? No, it's nothing to do with our crazy fucking game of cards we're playing with money. No, it's COVID. It's COVID. I mean, obviously, we stopped producing. That would be a great way to hide some of the effects of the bust, or at least delay it a little bit. It's weird how that works out. All right, guys. Let's move over today. I guess a little earlier than normal. Normally, I wait till about an hour in before I start our Dutroux reading, but I'm going into it earlier today. The reasoning being is because we have quite a long portion to read today. We are reading The Accused in Private Intelligence in Politics, and this one goes hard. It's long as shit. I'm not even sure we'll be able to still get it done reading, but let's see. We're gonna read that today. I do, just to remind those who haven't, say if this is your first time popping in here. With these, we are reading the Dutroux Affair. It's called Beyond the Dutroux Affair. There's a subtitle to it, but I forget. I don't want to scroll to the top. But this is the Dutroux Affair, was essentially a child trafficking network occurring in Belgium, which had connections to Gladio, to the royal family, had international connections. It was spooked the fuck up. International finance, international espionage. It was connected. So this is a great example of, honestly, the part of the reason why I wanted to read this with you guys is I think it's great to get this information out here so you guys are aware, also to spruce up my knowledge, because I want to, here soon at some point, I want to do and we're already in contact, I've talked about the show here, we're already in contact with Sam and his booker, and I want to do an episode that's kind of like a Gladio everything conspiracy, and how Gladio is so connected into other layers of other conspiracies, and I think Dutroux Affair is a great example of that, and so this is part of why I'm studying up for the big game, which will hopefully come here in a few months. So I still gotta schedule that, Mark. I heard from him the other day, so we'll do that here soon. But all right, guys, we're gonna get into. But anyways, the whole purpose of all that thing was I meant to do it so I could remember to provide a disclaimer. Very fucked up shit we talk about here. This is there will be probably some accounts of awful things that have happened. Incredibly awful things. I mean, if it's too gross for me to even read, I usually change some words here and there. I mean, obviously I change things to unalive or PDF or CP, just simply for the sake of allowing it to be able to get out to more people. It's just the nature. I can't be saying those words on YouTube. But either way, I'm just warning you guys, this is rough stuff before we get into that. But all right, The Accused in Private Intelligence in Politics. Two of the most prominent names in the X dossiers are Paul van den Boynens and Baron Benoit de Bonvoisin. Van den Boynens was accused by X1, X3, and X4 of being a violent child abuser and/or a person involved in hunts on children. Natalie W. claimed to have seen Van den Boynens at the Dolo, the favorite club of Nihul, while X2 testified she had seen Van den Boynens, private driver there. Henry Beale, talking to one of Belgium's most notorious gangsters, Madani Buhuch. X1 has named both Bill and Buhuch as child abusers. On a lesser note, Van den Boynens' name also appeared in the Pinon file of the 1980s and Maud Sarr's TV testimony in February 1990, in which his name came up alongside a DEA-trained gendarme general with whom he once ran a massive drug importing operation. Both the Pinon and Maud Sarr cases were about a prostitution network in which minors were used to blackmail high officials. X1 and X2 mentioned de Bonvoisin as one of the most sadistic abusers in the network. One of his sisters married Count Herve de Ursel, who has been accused by X1 of involvement in the snuff and ritual abuse network. His other sister is married to the earlier mentioned Bernard de Marode, an intelligence-connected family which has been accused of child abuse and Satanism by X4 and Natalie W. X2 mentioned having been at a meeting organized by her pimp at which De Merode, de Ursel, and de Bonvoisin families were all present, together with the Prince and Princess of Chimay. According to X2, hunts on children were organized in the woods of Chateau de Chimay. All right, it might come as a surprise, but Belgium has a rather rich conspiracy history. In the past 20 years, a lot of pages have been devoted to reports of high-level involvement in the planning of coups, false flag operations, prostitution networks, pedophilia, and drug dealing. Officially, all the individual scandals had nothing to do with each other and, above all, had nothing to do with the fascist underground. In reality, this fascist underground is key to understanding the full version of events. Spoiler, Belgium is hooked the fuck up with Gladio. All right. A good way to start this story is with the politician Paul van den Boynens, who represented the Parti Social Chrétien in Parliament from 1949 to 1979. In 1961, Van den Boynens became chairman of the PSC, and from 1966 to 1968, he was Prime Minister of Belgium. From 1972 to 1978, he was Defense Minister of Belgium, followed in 1979 with another brief stint as Prime Minister. There was nothing social about Van den Boynens' ideas, however. While being educated by the Jesuits in the 1930s, he became a prominent follower of Leon de Grelle, head of the fascist Rex Party. Although he didn't join the collaboration during World War II, Van den Boynens did seek contact with the Flemish nationalists in the late 1940s, at the time still a movement that was heavily persecuted for having worked with the Nazis. In 1949, Van den Boynens, together with the intelligence-connected, pro-colonialist journalist Joe Girard, set up the committee for the revival of the PSC, which turned out to be successful. Van den Boynens and Girard became top players in the new PSC party. At the time that these two men revived the PSC, they also ran a Red Scare campaign mirroring the one of Senator Joseph McCarthy in the U.S. In 1959, Van den Boynens set up a think tank within the PSC to neutralize its labor union wing. Around this time, he met up with the intelligence-connected aristocrat Baron Benoit de Bonvoisin, who also became active in the PSC. Over the next several decades, Paul van den Boynens and Baron de Bonvoisin became pillars of the fascist underground in Belgium. The organizations they founded were later named as having played a key role in the effort to destabilize Belgium, the objective being to bring in a stronger government that more effectively could counter the KGB subversion of labor unions and left-wing political parties. These operations were planned since at least 1972 and continued till at least the mid-1980s. A brief timeline follows. In 1969, Van den Boynens set up Cercle des Nations with a number of his political allies, including Baron de Bonvoisin and Paul van Kerhoven. Cercle des Nations was a private aristocratic club which started out with about 80 members who generally were royalists, staunchly anti-communist, pro-NATO, pro-European integration, and highly fascist. Examples of the Cercle's fascist tendencies include the April 1970 reception in honor of the fascist colonels that ruled Greece, the January 1976 celebration of the 10th anniversary of Papa Doc's Haitian dictatorship, and its magazine's continuous support for the apartheid in Africa, and the dictators of Pinochet, Franco, and Salazar. The Cercle has been tied to organized crime, and more than a few of its most prominent members have been accused of child abuse and child unaliving. Think, for instance, of Baron de Bonvoisin, Paul van den Boynens, Jean-Paul Dumont, Count Hervé de Ursel, Roger Boas, Charlie Depaux, Guy Mathot, Adu Blaton, General René Batz, Philippe Creens, and the de Merode family. In 1971, Paul van den Boynens, with funding from Baron de Bonvoisin, set up Nouvelle Europe magazine. Around this magazine, a number of NEM clubs were organized where fascist militants could meet each other. In 1972, Van den Boynens and de Bonvoisin founded CEPIC, a clandestine think tank which represented a renewed effort to neutralize the leftist elements within their PSC party. Van Kerhoven once again was one of the co-founders. In 1973, the fascists of the NEM clubs founded their own militant paramilitary group, Front de la Jeunesse. Francis de Song, a paid advisor of Baron de Bonvoisin, was appointed head of FJ. The Public Information Office, a joint private military intelligence group headed by Major Jean-Marie Bouguereau, was founded in 1974. Bouguereau was a member of SDRA 8, the heart of the Belgian Stay Behind network, which specialized in combat and sabotage, parachute jumping, and maritime operations. He gave orders to the head of the Front de la Jeunesse, Francis Dazon. Vanden Boynance and Baron de Bonvoisin had been responsible for Bouguereau's appointment, and they could often be found at PIO headquarters. To show how fascist he really was, Bouguereau traveled with CEPIC director Bernard Mercier to Spain in 1975 to attend the funeral of Franco. In 1971, PIO recruited Paul Latinus, a Nazi who in turn had been recruited by the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency in 1967 and had later been trained by NATO. His career was boosted by letters of recommendation of several CEPIC directors. In 1978, Latinus became a member of the Front de la Jeunesse, and in 1981, after the activities of the front were exposed, he was given permission by Dazon to create yet another Nazi militia, the Westland's New Post. WNP's head of security became the fascist murderer Marcel Barbier, a Wackenhut employee, which we've talked about Wackenhut many times on Already Dead. For those who aren't aware of it, was essentially an off-the-books Fed front, which is, I believe, almost in the, what's the word? Not evergreen. I don't know. It's kind of a, I don't know if you'd say wet works. It's like a Black Ops, off the books, private stuff. A section within Front de la Jeunesse was named Group G and consisted solely of gendarmerie officers. Reported members of this group were Paul Latinus, which then this has a bunch of stuff listed about him. That's not necessary. Commandant Leon Francois, DEA agent Frank Eaton, Marshal Lecoux, Bernard Devillet, and Didier Mevis. Group G was part of wider operation to infiltrate and subvert the Belgian state. Similar compartmented cells were located in the army, the Université Libre de Bruxelles, the Royal Military School, the Mobile Legion, the Special Intervention Squadron, the narcotics section of the BOB, and different other branches of the gendarmerie. There's very little information available about all these groups. In addition to its efforts to infiltrate law enforcement and the military, Front de la Jeunesse also organized training camps in the Ardennes. Fascists like Jean-Francis Calmat, who had joined the terrorist OAS, which tried to assassinate de Gaulle and destabilize Algeria, self-defense instructor of Diana Group and recruits, director of Wackenhut Belgium until 1981, head of security of the annual ball, the PSC, in 1980, headed by Paul Vanden Boynance at the time, member of Westland New Post. So spooked up. The later local Wackenhut director who also recruited Barbier were instructors at these camps. We gotta say, has Jose talked about the Madison shooter being connected to some guy in California who was planning an attack there? I haven't really talked about the Madison shooter at all. I don't know why. I just haven't been too interested, as bad as that may sound. Pretty wild. Hey, Jose, good morning. Good morning, that coolish guy. That would. Oh, Eddie's saying that'd be a great episode. I'm assuming referring to what I'm talking about kind of how Gladio interconnects with so many other. It's kind of an everything conspiracy. It's like an everything bagel in that way. But all right, let's get back to the book or to the story. The fascist network that Vanden Boynance, de Bonvoisin, and their associates had carefully built up had to absorb a severe blow in May 1981 when excerpts of a confidential state security memo were published by De Morgan. The memo explained the role of CEPIC, and more specifically Baron de Bonvoisin and John Bouguereau, in cultivating a fascist underground in Belgium. Okay, what is this? This is confidential. I don't know, let's take our word for it that this is explaining the role of CPIC. Whatever, let's read it, I guess, real quick. Confidential. This is the supposed confidential paper that got released. It was determined that certain members of the board of the CEPIC in the past have lent their cooperated, keep in mind this is translated from another language, to the publication and the editorial office of NEM, were part of the NEM clubs of the FJ, Front de la Jeunesse, and maintain contact with board members or supporters of the latter mentioned groups. So all three of these groups, CEPIC, NEM, Front de la Jeunesse, these are all kind of spooked up groups of different sorts connected to each other, essentially. Amongst others, it concerns John Bradell, Secretary General of the CEPIC, Benoit de Bonvoisin, Treasurer of the CEPIC, Joseph Joe Girard, Paul Van Kerkhoven, Joseph Franz, and Bernard Mercier. ISGP note, the most prominent, Paul Vanden Boynietz, has been left out. The board, the administration, the editorial office of the NEM, which has been published under this name since 1971 by the Compagnie Internationale des Editions Populaires, is located at number 5 at Dekkenstraat in Brussels. Furthermore, at this address was located the Secretariat of the 1972 founded NEM clubs, as well until 1978 the seat of FJ. The seat of CEPIC is located at number 39 of the Belliardstraat in Brussels. This building also contains the Belliard Auditorium, the seat of Mouvement d'Action pour Unité Européenne, just as the offices of the Société de Promotion et de la Distribution Générale, supervised through a go-between by Benoit de Bonvoisin. I gotta say, I'm getting pretty damn good at these words and names. All right, the NEM is supported by Benoit de Bonvoisin, who pays the rent of one of the in the Dekkenstraat located offices and hires the editor-in-chief as an advisor, Francis Dosagnon, head of the FJ, who was paid in the same way until he left NEM. The partnership, PDG, and consequently de Bonvoisin, through a go-between finances the magazine Info Rep, which claims to be a daily paper for party readers, but in reality is a bilanguage magazine with strong anti-communist leanings. From 1976 to 1978, the editor-in-chief was Major Jean Bougereau, a higher career officer working for the headquarters of the domestic armed forces, has spoken at lectures organized by the NEM clubs. This officer, who keeps in close contact with Bernard Mercier, board member of the CEPIC, was mentioned as one of the organizers of the transport from Antwerp to the seat of the CPIC in Brussels of a wanted neo-Nazi terrorist. This person had to be taken by Bernard Mercier to a domain in the Ardennes belonging to de Bonvoisin and subsequently to France. The German was intercepted by state security during the trip from Antwerp to Brussels. According to unverifiable sources, the FJ would have approached several foreign governments and opposition movements for financial support. All right, I'm sorry I read that, guys. That was super boring and a lot of stuff, but essentially it just kind of established the connection between these three different groups and how tight in they are. I believe one of the groups is essentially supposed to be some sort of government group. Anyways, these are all obviously all different intelligence cutouts. These are essentially the way they play the shell game. There's clearly some Gladio stuff going on. But all right, let's keep going. Although the publishing of this memo ended the public career of Baron de Bonvoisin and resulted in the disbanding of CEPIC, the underground network of fascists remained operational. It would be tied to the violent gang of Nicheville robberies from 1982 to 1985 and the Cellulese Communistes Combattantes bombing in 1984 and 1985. Several men from this fascist network would give a few hints about how their clandestine operation was being used by unknown higher-ups, at least one of them being U.S. intelligence. Around 1981, Paul Latanis testified more than once that he worked for the American Intelligence Services. Also, his assistant, Marcel Barbier, claimed to work for an international organization of which he never wanted to give the name. That's interesting. That's the Wackenhut guy. On top of that, Paul Latanis testified in 1983 that his organization, the WNP, to which Libert Barbier and others belonged, worked for an unnamed Allied power and countered the Soviet infiltration in Belgium. Sounds exactly like Gladio. WNP member Michel Libert stated, one received orders. We can go back to, say, 1982. From 1982 to 1985, there were projects. I was told, you, Mr. Libert, know nothing about why we're doing this. Nothing at all. All we ask is that your group, with cover from the gendarmerie, with cover from security, carry out a job. Target the supermarkets. Where are they? What kind of locks are there? What sort of protection do they have that could interfere with their operations? Does the store manager lock up, or do they use an outside security company? We carried out the orders and sent in our reports. Hours opening and closing. Everything you want to know about a supermarket. What was this for? Clearly hints to the gang of Nijvel. This was one among hundreds of missions. WNP. What is the WNP? Testify. Oh, this is the one that Paul Latinas, this guy, worked for. The WNP worked for... Okay, so this is what the WNP was saying at one point. They were just investigating supermarkets for some reason, and no idea why. I believe, if I recall correctly, the gang of Nijvel has something to do with some sort of tax or something along those lines, supermarkets. But it is interesting to use as an example to kind of show how possibly there's some sort of compartmentalized operation going on here, because these ones are collecting intel for supermarkets. And do they know what it's for? No, they just know we need intel on these supermarkets, and that's that. Marshal Licau was another person who gave certain details. He had been one of the earliest members of Group G and was a good friend of Commandant Leon Francois and Paul Latinas. He gave his information in 1985 after having fled to the United States. When I joined the gendarmerie, I became a devout fascist. At the Diana Group, I got to know people who had the same convictions as me. We greeted each other like the Nazis. During the gatherings of the front, a plan was developed to destabilize Belgium and to prepare it for non-democratic regime. Which I do want to back up real quick, because this may not be an element that you guys have picked up on, but I have. When it comes to Gladio, and why people will say anti-communist this, or there was kind of this almost this false binary during this period of time that was created. I mean, hell, World War II was, in a sense, the communists versus the Nazis. Obviously, we had the U.S. involved, which we teamed up with the communists. But I mean, if you look at, especially like you see people like, God, what's his name? How can I not think of his name? The fucking, I'm reading a book about him right now. One of the Dulles brothers. They were both seemed to be pretty hip to the Nazis. There were a lot of people who seemed to have quite the connections with Nazis. It seemed to be, this is stuff that like Sam Tripoli talks about all the time, but like how they never really lost. And it's like, that's what we're looking at right here. What Gladio kind of is, Paperclip. I mean, a lot of these characters ended up just taking on different roles. And, being now, instead of, being only part of Germany, they became part of many nations. They became, now we're part of this entity. We're anti-communist. We're fighting communist power. We're working, we're stay behind networks. We're, doing this op, that op, all to fight communism, which was a big part of Nazism, was being anti-communist. So, point being is a lot of this is just kind of like, this is Nazi shit. It really is. I'm not putting any sort of value on that or not, but that's what it is. There's a lot of Nazis, a lot of Nazi elements that you'll see in these Gladio operations. So, which kind of makes sense at the time. A lot of the people who hated communism were Nazis. So, but and then also the countries involved. So this is kind of almost like underground Nazi espionage stuff, but under a different name. No longer technically under the auspices of being part of the German Nationalist Workers' Party or whatever. All right. During the gathering of the front, a plan was developed to destabilize Belgium and to prepare it for a non-democratic regime. This plan consisted of two parts, a cell political terrorism and a cell gangsterism. I worked in the cell gangsterism. I was one of the specialists who had to train young guys with rightist leanings, to knead them into a well-trained gang prepared to do anything. After that, I had to break all contact with them so they could exist as an independent group and do robberies without realizing they were part of a well-planned plot. Okay, well, that's interesting. He's literally training these guys, ditching them, and they're part of a larger plot, but he's only giving them the information they need to be part of the plot he needs them for. They'd have two plans. The first one was to organize gangs to do hold up of hostage, unaliving. The second one was to organize a so-called left movement who will do a terrorist attempt just to make the population believe these terrorist attempts were done by the left. See, this is what we're talking about with Gladio. Just saying it out loud there. He's like, they're literally saying they're controlling both sides in this one. Sides in quotations. So they'd have the right guys, and then on the left you would have guys that he's essentially faking or driving them to violence, whether it's real or not might be a side point. driving them to violence. That way he can point to them and go, look, we need to get rid of the communists. Like Lebert, Lecoux strongly hinted to the fascist underground's involvement in the Gang of Nijvel affair, a series of violent robberies which occurred from December 1982 to November 1985. Coincidentally, during some of these robberies, a number of individuals were killed that not too long before had belonged to CEPIC, had informed persons about a plan to subvert the state, or had been tied to sex parties, possibly with minors. Okay, so it sounds like people who had talked or were going to burn them. Although never prosecuted, the person who was the most severely implicated in this affair was the fascist John Bultot. Against the advice of state security, Bultot had been appointed assistant director of the Sint Gillis prison in Brussels. He acted as a liaison between several Nazi inmates and Belgium's fascist underground, for which he allegedly did some recruiting. Among his friends were Francis Dazon, head of Front de la Jeunesse, and Jean-Paul Pepe Dergic, the owner of the fascist Jonathan Club, which was frequented by such men as Madani Bouhouche and Jean-Francis Calmat. Coincidentally, Dergic was an associate of Jean-Michel Nihoul. They also the same hobby, blackmailing people. As for Bultot having been implicated in the Gang of Nijvel affair, when a stolen, burnt-out car belonging to the Gang of Nijvel was found on the side of the road, detectives also found a charred piece of paper with handwriting of Bultot's girlfriend, Claudine Falkenberg. At that time, Falkenberg worked at the ministry of Cécile Gore, a former member of the by-then disbanded CPIC. The piece of paper was a fragment of a February 1984 speech that Bultot had given at the Triton Club during a shooting competition he had organized. This event had been patroned by Cécile Gore, or patroned, Secretary of the State Pierre Menlil, also of CEPIC, and the Cultural Department of the U.S. Embassy in Brussels. In that same month, also the Triton, Bultot had given a demonstration to civil servants, law enforcement officers, and intelligence agents about the use of Kevlar in car doors. Coincidentally, traces of Kevlar were found in the car doors of the burnt-out Gang of Nijvel car. These leads were never pursued. During a house search at Bultot's girlfriend, inspectors found the telephone number of Dr. Pinon in her address book. Nobody knows for sure what it did there, but it does seem as if over time the Pinon dossier has become a corrupted blackmail dossier for de Bonvoisin and his fascist friends. After Bultot had fled to Paraguay in 1986 in the aftermath of the unaliving of Juan Mendez by Bouhouche, he decided to sing. The first thing he claimed was that the rumors of high-level involvement in the Gang of Nijvel affair and a subsequent cover-up were true. Then the disinformation came. State security, the enemy of de Bonvoisin, and Bultot was behind it. Bultot went on to advise examining magistrate Freddie Troche to reopen the Pinon affair. One thing is for sure, a lot of politicians and magistrates would not have appreciated that. A piece of evidence in the Gang of Nijvel case that is not directly linked to Bultot is that the ammunition the robbers used was unique to the Special Intervention Squadron, which is also called the Diana Group. Additionally, in one of the robberies, the gang members used a tactic only used in special police forces like Belgium's Diana Group, a fact that might result in flashbacks to Front de la Jeunesse and its Group G branch. But wasn't the front disbanded in 1981 under the memo of state security? Well, it was, but it is known that Westland New Post, under the leadership of Latinus, remained in existence until 1984. And like DAZN, Latinus took orders from John Bougerol and his PIO intelligence group, if not the DIA directly. Like Front de la Jeunesse, PIO was officially disbanded in 1981. However, Bougerol and his group did not disappear. PIO was absorbed into a completely private entity named the European Institute of Management. Bougerol was followed up by none other than longtime ambassador Douglas MacArthur II, a nephew of the famous general and by this time a very close friend and business associate of Sun Myung Moon. Like PIO had controlled Front de la Jeunesse, so EIM remained in control of Latinus's Westland New Post and likely several other aspects of the fascist underground. Martial Barbier, head of security in WNP, joined EIM. Just as interesting, Gendarme Colonel René Marius became administrative director of EIM. Mayoris had been a co-founder of the Special Intervention Squadron, Diana Group, and was a close acquaintance of John Bougerol, not to mention WNP members Buhush and Whack and Hunt director Calmet. He referred people for a security expert to WNP head Paul Latinus. After his retirement, Mayoris was suspected of having spied on the BOB in Brussels for EIM to have recruited Bougerol into EIM. If this wasn't enough to get someone interested in the links between the gendarmerie, the fascist underground, PIO/EIM, and the Gang of Nijvel, then also consider that 11 months before the first Gang of Nijvel robbery, Buhush had been totally implicated, but not prosecuted, in a break-in at the Diana Group in which 24 of the newest rifles and pistols were stolen. Buhush and Bultot knew each other well at the time, as they were prominent members of the Belgian Practical Shooting Association. Some of the shooting events they organized included the theme Warehouse Panic. As you can see, it's not really surprised that Bultot and Buhush have always been primary suspects of alternative researchers of having been Gang of Nijvel members. The official investigators in the first few years examining Magistrate Jean de Preter and his sidekick Commandant Dutroux concluded that there were no links to a fascist underground, but what authority do their claims really have? De Preter had already been accused of covering up the Montarakor Israel case and soon thereafter of drawing unnecessary attention to the Binon dossier. In 1996, X2 accused him of having been part of the child abuse network. Maud Sarr had already mentioned his name in 1990. Commandant Dutroux has now become notorious for having played a key role in covering up the X dossiers. By now, it should be obvious that the CEPIC leadership played a key role in the whole effort to subvert the Belgian state. Not surprisingly, directors of CEPIC not only interacted a lot with PIO and the fascist underground, they also had numerous ties to foreign intelligence. CEPIC director Joe Girard, who had revived the PSC with Vanden Boynens after World War II, had designed an assassination plot against Lumumba. Soon after Congo had been granted independence from Belgium, his plan was canceled after it was decided the CIA should take over. Which, keep that in mind, see the way that these work together. So I'm assuming this CEPIC sounds essentially kind of like a Belgium CIA is what I'm getting at this. Although I believe it got disbanded. Although I'm having a hard time keeping up with all the different acronyms. CEPIC director Paul van Kerhoven had set up the Belgian branch of the World Anti-Communist League, and because of that was in close contact with the CIA, DIA, the NATO Stay-Behind Network, and the Moonies of Sun Myung Moon. In addition to his co-founding of Cercle des Nations and l'Institut Européen de Développement, he also was secretary of Otto von Habsburg's CEDI, making him a major player in the intelligence-ridden Vatican Pan-Europa network. CEPIC director Bernard Mercier had numerous intelligence connections. In Brussels, he provided the WMP with a flat to house militants and sensitive dossiers. Mercier was a good friend of PIO head major John Bougerol. In 1975, they together had been to the funeral of Franco, the fascist director of Spain. Mercier also regularly met in Brussels with several members of foreign intelligence agencies, and like Van Kerhoven, he is known to have been in contact with Belgian representatives of Hijinx Press, the Portuguese stay-behind network set up and controlled by the CIA. Hijinx Press had been founded by the Yves Guérin-Serac, a close associate of Otto Scorenzi and Stefano del Shai, two major players in the fascist underground of Europe. Serac had been one of the members of the terrorist OAS, which had tried to assassinate de Gaulle and prevent the independence of Algeria. In May 1974, a number of documents had been retrieved from a hastily abandoned Hijinx Press headquarters. On one of these documents, a text could be found which is perfectly in line with the words of Marshal Lecoux and Michel Lebert, not to mention numerous other statements from individuals once connected to the fascist stay-behind networks. All right, in quotes. In the first phase of our political activity, we must create chaos in all structures of the regime. Two forms of terrorism can provoke such a situation. Blind terrorism, committing massacres indiscriminately which cause a large number of victims, and selective terrorism, eliminate chosen persons. This destruction of the state must be carried out as much as possible under the cover of quote-unquote communist activities. After that, we must intervene at the heart of the military, the judicial power, and the church in order to influence popular opinion, suggest a solution, and clearly demonstrate the weakness of the present legal apparatus. Popular opinion must be polarized in such a way that we are being presented as the only instrument capable of saving the nation. It is obvious that we will need considerable financial resources to carry out such operations. I believe that might end up being a tweet from me here in a bit. That's wild. Okay. CEPIC founder and treasurer Baron de Bonvoisin also had a share of intelligence connections. As mentioned, Francis Dosson and his Front de la Jeunesse were completely dependent on his money. In late 1975 or early 1976, de Bonvoisin hosted a meeting at his castle where leading fascist militants from Belgium, Italy, France, Britain, and Spain met with each other. Like Mercier and Van den Boynants, de Bonvoisin could regularly be found at PIO headquarters. Also, his good friend and security consultant André Moyen, who supported his campaign against the Dex dossiers, used to be an important player in the Stay Behind network. De Bonvoisin has not only stated that he worked with U.S. intelligence, Paul Van den Boynants, and Major John Bougerol's superior in countering Soviet subversion, but also that his U.S. friends were largely responsible for getting his arch-enemy, the anti-fascist head of state security, to resign. Besides his political role within the CEPIC, Benoit de Bonvoisin exerted an influence in Zaire, which is in the Congo Belgian colony. Firstly, in the struggle against communism, and secondly, attempting to curb corruption with friends from the American administration. Van den Boyens assigned General Roman and Benoit on a number of missions in order to counteract the Soviet influence in Belgium. Through a number of people with whom he was in touch in the United States and France, BDB felt it necessary to try and get the Belgian intelligence services under democratic control. He considered it urgent, since this was the only secret service to escape control. Get past. Sorry, this is in parentheses. I didn't feel like the need to read all that. Bashes Albert Reyes, head of bashes him a bit more. Reyes tries to associate B to B with the extreme right, a trick often used by Soviet secret services. Professor Lode van Otrieve concluded several times the Americans tried to convince Reyes to concentrate first and foremost on the Eastern Bloc countries, whereas he seemed more interested in targeting extreme right-wing movements. This clearly bothered the Americans, who got him to resign. I hope that was intelligible. The quote was weird. There are numerous links between Belgium's fascist underground intelligence. The following table has been created to summarize these links. More information can be found. Obviously, if you guys go to this thing, you can look there. I'm not going to read a whole little table out to you guys, but this is a list of a lot of the different people we've talked about earlier already, and all the different spooked out organizations. What word was I looking for there? Agencies is what I was looking for there. All right. Agencies. So this is all spooked up agencies. The Habsburg network in this table is a reference to this person's general or central role in setting up and running what this author has been labeling the Vatican Pan-Europa network. Besides the national branches of Opus Dei and the Knights of Malta, in Belgium, this network consisted of such organizations as Mouvement d'Action pour la Union de l'Europe, l'Institut Européen de Développement, Académie Européenne des Sciences Politiques, Ordre des Rêveurs, la Ligue, Jesus Christ, International de la Liberté, and Cercle des Nations. All these organizations had overlapping membership and were connected to other equally reactionary organizations all over Catholic Europe. One of the most important branches in this extremely anti-communist network is the privatized, intelligence-oriented discussion group Le Cercle, which for over 50 years has brought together questionable individuals connected to European and U.S. intelligence agencies, including CIA heads Casey and Colby, respectively belonging to the Knights of Malta and Opus Dei. So yeah, Opus Dei, Knights of Malta, Le Cercle, these are all like really spooked up groups. It was set up by French Prime Minister Antoine Pinay and the fascist intelligence agent John Violet in the 1950s. Otto von Habsburg acted as a sponsor of Violet. Man, I gotta be... Damn, we are fucking... Man, we are still a ways from being done. All right, let's keep it moving. Sorry, guys. I gotta find my spot again. Yeah. Oh, fuck. My bad. Where was I? Said by French. Okay. Interestingly, Violet is known to have been a member of Cercles des Nations, meeting here with such men as Baron de Bonvoisin, Paul van den Boynens, Paul van der Koven, de Merode family lawyer Jacques Jonet, and other anti-communist radicals. It's probably no surprise to learn that most, if not all, of these men, including Violet, belong to Opus Dei and the Knights of Malta. It's also known that Violet, Van Kerkhoven, and Jonet work closely with Otto von Habsburg. Update. Along with Violet and Habsburg, Baron de Bonvoisin, Paul van Kerkhoven, and Jacques Jonet have visited the CIA's Cercle group. Opus Dei has come up more than once in Belgian conspiracy history. BOB officers Gerard Behet and Guy Dussart informed congressional investigators during a closed session that they had been provided information by two nobles belonging to Opus Dei. These two informed the officers at least 9 members of Opus Dei were involved in a plan to subvert the Belgian state. Several meetings between the conspirators, which included Gendarmerie General Fernand Burer and Paul van den Boynens, would have taken place in Castle Dongelberg and Opus Dei retreat. Interestingly, in 1996, both X2 and Natalie W. mentioned Dongelberg in their testimonies, referring to it as a location where children had been abused by members of the network. X4 has testified that members of Opus Dei have been among her most sadistic clients, which makes sense to me. Besides de Bonvoisin and Van den Boynens, X1 also gave names and details of other persons who played a key role in the fascist network described above. Debates and Hupez had received stacks of private notes of X1, which he had written up to 6 years before the affair. In one of these notes, which in this particular case could actually have been written after the Dutroux affair broke out, X1 described how she had been garaped by a gendarme officer who always wore dark brown sunglasses. She remembered having also seen this gendarme officer in Humo magazine several years before her testimony. Debates immediately thought about Madani Buhush, and because he already had suspicions about links to the old Gang of Nijvel dossiers, he gathered photographs of gendarme officers suspected of having played a role in this affair. X1 was presented with 40 photographs, some showing real suspects, others from unrelated dossiers. After another long and psychologically challenging session, X1 had selected 8 pictures. 3 of the selected men clearly were misidentified, as they had never been linked to the extreme right or the Gang of Nijvel, and had been added to the collection for no specific reason. 4 other identifications made by X1 turned out to be far more intriguing. One of them was the person Debates already suspected, Madani Buhush. The others were former gendarme officer Christian Amori, gendarme Colonel Gerard Loss, and the earlier mentioned gendarme Colonel Rene Mayris. According to the authors of the X dossiers, X1 identified Madani Buhush as the very violent driver of the BMW who took her to the factory, and Christian Amory as a sort of slave driver who brought her and her fellow victims to recording studios or parks where older men shot at hunted children. One of the colonels belonged to that group, X1 says. Her account about those kinds of hunting parties on Human Game, about which X2, X3, X4, and Natalie W. later also speak, is by far the most controversial part of her testimony. Oh, I didn't realize X1, 2, 3, and 4 also all talk about the hunting parties. For some reason, I only thought it was one of them. One of the individuals that was recognized used to be a driver in a service, the Diana Group, that was headed by Lost and was in the possession of heavy black BMWs. The factory X1 regularly spoke about was a location where, besides regular abuse, snuff movies were shot. Van den Boynen's private driver, Henry Bill, Baron de Bonvoisin, Annie Bowdy, Michel Nihoul, Tony the controversial lawyer Michel van der Elst, former Prime Minister Wilfrid Martins, examining magistrate Melchior Wathelet, and lawyer Jean-Paul Dumont apparently all went to the ASCO factory to torture and abuse children. In November 1996, X1 took the investigators to the location she described. On arrival, it turned out that the witness had been talking about the ASCO factory located just outside Brussels. The description she had given matched, and coincidentally, ASCO was and is owned by the Boas family, which used to be close friends and business partners of the late Paul van den Boynens. X1 mentioned having seen a Roger at the factory, apparently the head of the Boas family, who used to be a member of CEPIC and Cercles des Nations. Following is a more detailed description of the men pointed out by X1. All right. The men sorry. Buhush was closely associated with Group G, Front de la Jeunesse, Westland New Post, and the Diana Group. He has been accused of involvement in a number of assassinations and break-ins. In 1979, Buhush began preparations for a long-term operation to terrorize and extort a number of warehouses. Accomplices in this operation were Bob Bayer, Christian Amory, Rene Shang Weiling, brother of an important BOB officer, Juan Mendez, and apparently also Jean Bulteau. This group is widely believed to have had something to do with the gang of Nijvel. Whether this was the case or not, their operation was canceled in 1996 after Buhush was arrested on suspicions of having murdered Juan Mendez. Confronted with testimonies of Christian Amory, Buhush admitted to his interrogators that recruiting Mendez had been an assignment given to him by the WMP leadership, and there was a political motive behind the attacks they had been planning, or if they were behind the gang of Nijvel, might actually have carried out. Additionally, Buhush appears to have been closely associated with Michel Nihoul. He went to the fascist Jonathan Club, whose owner, Pepe Daric, was on good terms with Nihoul. Together with Bayer and Boltot, he went to the prestigious Dancing Maranos, where Nihoul also went. The Marano became embroiled in a drug scandal in the 1980s, but accusations that its owner, Philippe Creens, ran a child prostitution network were carefully ignored by the magistrates. When Buhush was arrested in 1986, he picked Jean-Paul Dumont as his legal representative. The earlier mentioned Dumont, once a member of the CEPIC Council, was on close terms with Nihoul, represented leading fascists as Francis Tosson and Paul Latinus, and shared a law office with the lawyer of Alex Elevators and Marc Dutroux. As already mentioned, Dumont himself has been accused of child abuse on several occasions. In 1996, X2 testified that she had seen Buhush at the Dulo, Nihoul's favorite hangout, talking to Henry Bill and being involved with some of the child abusers. Christian Amory was a gendarme officer in the BOB section and was part of Buhush's criminal Nazi group to someday conduct a terror extortion campaign against warehouses. He worked in the Walloon-Brabant cell. A terror extortion campaign against warehouses. Oh, that's the key point earlier where they were talking about how they had that shooting club and that they at one point had a theme that was like warehouse chaos or something. So it almost sounds like they were running exercises on a future op. Okay. He worked in the Walloon-Brabant cell that investigated the gang of Nijvel and would later become a leading suspect in the case. Together with the Nazi Jean Frosch Calmat, he was associated with the mercenary firm Contact in Brussels. Interestingly, in 2003, Amory was prosecuted with Baron Benoit de Bonvoisin and Pierre de Bonvoisin for having forged KG documents to provide a vast left-wing conspiracy against de Bonvoisin involving state security. All right. Mayeris has been discussed earlier. He was the administrative director of EIM under MacArthur II, had been a co-founder of the Diana Group, and used to be a good friend of Madani Buhush, John Francis Calmat, and PIO head John Bougeroul. He was one of the more unknown suspects in the gang of Nijvel case, and his picture would have been virtually unknown to anyone in the public. Gendarme Colonel Gerard Loss, having another rather unknown suspect in the gang of Nijvel case, was head of the Diana Group in the early 1980s. In early 1982, Loss used his authority to acquire control of the investigation of the arms robbery of the Diana Group, of which Buhush would be the top suspect. By April, Loss had effectively halted the investigation. Colleagues accused him of ignoring leads to the extreme right. Loss actually knew a lot of fascists for the Front de la Jeunesse circles, and when he left the gendarmerie in 1985, he joined the Security Bureau of the European Commission. Here he teamed up with fascists as Pierre Yvelard, Robert Thomas, Roland Maffioli, and several others. Even though there were plenty of reasons to be suspicious of these men, it should be remembered that the accusations against Mayeris, Loss, Emery, and Buhush are less powerful than many other aspects of X1's testimony. Bahouche was already Belgium's most famous gangster, and his face had appeared in the media here and there. And unfortunately, neither the authors of the book, the X dossiers, nor the Dutroux dossier summary reported how many of the 40 pictures portrayed real suspects. X1 misidentified 3 and possibly 4 pictures, which at best gives us a 60% accuracy rate. Even when one takes into account the psychological problems X1 had with looking at pictures, or the problems that come into play when trying to recognize someone from a picture, it would have been nice if other X witnesses could confirm more aspects of this part of her testimony. However, seeing how the investigation proceeded, it's likely that most of them have never been asked about these men. But even without the accusations against these 4 former gendarmerie officers, it appears that the X dossiers are intrinsically linked to earlier Belgian affairs, whether it involves larger-scale drug trafficking, assassinations, subversion of state, or underground abuse and snuff networks. The same individuals and organizations appear time and time again. All right, on next time we go into this, we'll continue on the U.S. connection continues, what's called. So I don't know if they're meaning strictly on Intel side of things or not, but we are going to go ahead and wrap things up for the day. I appreciate everyone who showed up. We'll be doing another one tomorrow, it seems like. It seems like maybe Raven will be joining us. If you like what I'm doing over here, you can support me over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The lowest level's $2. That gives you the early episodes. Like, for example, tonight I have one of the Jones Plantation guys coming on. We're going to talk about essentially some people had some crazy conspiracy theory against him, some schizo, so I just thought it'd be fun to break it down, kind of go when conspiracy theories goes too far. And, just an excuse to talk about Jones Plantation too. But also, it allows you to be a talking head on Already Dead for the call-in portion of the show. That's a show I do with Austin Picard. That's patreon.com, just NoWayJose2020. The highest level is my sponsors. I read them off every episode as a thanks. I have my co-host on Tower Gang, at Tower Gang Toad, at Abrogate D's, at ZOVERACK, at _Infant Zeal, Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast. You can follow him at Biblical Anarchy. Then Tim Tuttle. Follow him at Jolly on Klebold. Then Will Bell's Delicious Blueberry Rabbit Eye Wine. Then a big fan of the show at Real Josh Elliott. Then Torin May, another big fan of the show. I appreciate you guys supporting the show, making it so I can do what I do. Guys, make sure you're hitting like out there. I gotta say, hey, what's now? Thanks, Jose. Have a great day, y'all. Fire Pixie. Thanks, Jose. Thanks, you guys. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button on your way out. If you can, share this around. Help out. Leave a 5-star review on whatever podcatcher you use. Just little things like that can help. You guys may have noticed there's probably more ads if you're listening on audio side things. I'm going to here soon, as soon as I have fucking time. I have so much going on in my life. I've sort of figured out how I can put an RSS feed on Patreon, and there's a way to do it ad free. So you guys, if you don't want to deal with the ads on the audio side things, you should be here soon, able to listen on Patreon. So that way you can just avoid the ads. I gotta set that up soon. I'll let you guys know when it is set up. Should be pretty soon. I'd say within the next week or so. I should have a time to sit down and figure that out. But just a big appreciate you guys supporting what I'm doing over here and trying to do what I can where I can to increase the value for you guys. I also will probably upgrade the setup I have so far as like chapters and transcripts and stuff like that here soon. Make it look a little nice, up the production value a little bit. It's just me though, so this is all shit I gotta figure out, and I'm a tech idiot. But make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. Hell, even if you aren't watching, just pop in. I found out last night, apparently from Clint, like especially with a live thing, even if you don't watch it, just the boost determines future things. So like the more you get the live viewing, the more you'll get later. So it's kind of like an algo boost. So even if you just hop in there, even if you're going to watch it, even if you're just going to watch it later, just hop in there just for the live. But love you all. I'm out of here. Deuces.